So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and we're here at the Enoch Brown Memorial Park. This is part of our French and Indian War series, or more specifically, we're talking about the Pontiac's War, which occurred right after the French and Indian War. I'm not going to go on to that. It's all that history in this video. I've covered that in other videos, but this is one of the worst attacks or worst massacres that occurred during that time period. So just heads up, this is not a pleasant story that you're about to hear, but it's still one that needs to be told. So back in July of 1764, this was the site of a schoolhouse. We are here in Franklin County, just a couple miles north of the Maryland border. They do have like a little park here, but the main attraction here is the memorial that they have here. So on that day, the school teacher was here. His name was Enoch Brown. That's who the massacre is named after. And there were 11 school children, I think 2 girls and 9 boys on that day. Go ahead and read the sign here. Erected by direction of the Franklin County Centennial Convention, in name of the teachers and scholars of all the schools in the county. Those are the people who made it. Let's see what else is written here. Doesn't say anything about the massacre yet. Sacred to the memory of Schoolmaster Enoch Brown and 11 scholars, or students. Has a few of their names there: Ruth Hart, Ruth Hale, Eben Taylor, George Dunstan, Archie McCullough, and 6 others, names unknown, who were massacred and scalped by Indians on this spot, July 26, 1764. Yes, on that day, everything was going according to normal. School had started. I guess they were doing their lessons, and then all of a sudden, depending on the story, either 3 or 4 Delaware Indians barged open through the door. Most say that there were 2 older Indians and 1 younger one, but some sources say there was 2 older ones and 2 younger ones. But regardless, they barged in. The schoolmaster, school teacher Enoch Brown, realized right away what was going on. Because you understand, during this time period, scalps were a big thing. The government in Pennsylvania had put a bounty on any Native American. If you could get the scalp of them, you could get money for it, and the Indians are also reciprocated in like manner. So scalping people was the thing to do, unfortunately, back then. And unfortunately, a lot of innocents were caught up in that. Not everybody that was actually involved in the war was being scalped. It was just people who were just outright innocent. But unfortunately, that's the way it was. It has a little bit more about what happened there. I'll read that in a moment, though. But yeah, it was a normal day, but Enoch Brown, the teacher, he realized what was going to happen. He realized what these Indians wanted, and he offered himself. He said, "Hey, take me instead, and spare the children's lives." Yeah, here it says, the remains of Enoch Brown and the 10 scholars, except for Archie McCullough, he survived the scalping. We'll talk about him. They lie buried nearby here. They fell as pioneer martyrs in the cause of education. Yeah, so they didn't listen to Enoch Brown. They struck him down right in front of the students and scalped him right there. And then they proceeded to do the same to all 11 of the children that were in that room in this schoolhouse that was right here. And of course, it was done all to get their scalps, and kind of to be done in retaliation of what was going on. This was known as Pontiac's War, or Pontiac's Rebellion. These raids had gone on for years. They had occurred quite a bit. 1755 to 1757, they were fairly common. But then in 1758, here in Pennsylvania, you had the Treaty of Easton, which kind of ended the raids here in Pennsylvania. It was kind of quiet for a while, but then when Pontiac's Rebellion stirred up in 1763, these raids kind of started up all over again. You had a whole new series of these Indian raids. But the massacre had gone unnoticed for several hours until someone walking by the school noticed that things were awfully quiet. You normally hear voices or kids talking, the teacher talking, but everything was quiet. And then they entered the little school building, and they saw what happened. At first, they just thought there was 10, the teacher and then 10 students that had been killed, but they didn't realize that one had survived. Archie McCullough had survived the scalping. I think it says, most stories say that the Indians had beat the kids on the head with a club or something. But Archie survived the scalping, which is horrendous in and of itself if you understand what scalping is. But they didn't realize that because he wasn't here when they checked out the school building. Well, when it was reported what happened, they came back to take care of what happened here. You know, he was actually, they found him later down by this, there's a spring down here in the woods. They found him down there washing his head, you know, from what had happened to him. They didn't realize he had survived until he kind of just started looking around, I guess, searching for any sign of the Indians had done, searching for any sign that the Indians had done this. It wasn't until then that they realized that there was one lone survivor, Archie. Well, I believe that spring is down there, down the hollow somewhere, they said. That's where they found him. I think it's called Archie's Spring to this day. Not sure exactly where that spot is, though. But yeah, there's the monument. Yeah, so pretty sad story, but you know, that's the way it was back in those times. You always, we talk about this being the frontier. Even in my previous video, we were up on the mountain up there talking about how this was the frontier. You know, you lived in constant fear of things like that happening. These people probably never thought it would happen to them or their children, but that's the way it was back then. It's a very sobering story, though, and not, like I said, not a pleasant one at all. But yeah, what happened to Archie? It's hard to know. One source says that he was never mentally the same again, but I found other sources that say he just kind of disappeared from history. One family tried to trace him. They think his family, they say he eventually married and his family moved to somewhere in Kentucky, so that's what one source says, but not much is known of him. He kind of disappears from the history records. And then what about those Indians who committed the massacre? There's a story that goes that once they got back to their encampment or to their village, they were not treated very well. In that village there was another settler that was captive at the time, and he was there when the Indians who made this massacre returned to the village, and they were not treated well. The scalps they had taken obviously were from children, and there was nothing really heroic about that. You know, the scalps were not taken in battle or any kind of like heroic action. They were defenseless children, so they were not well received. In fact, the tribal elders referred to them as cowards, which in that culture was, well, even in our culture, it's not something that would be called, but yeah, they were not received well. So that makes this story almost doubly sad, because the crime was committed, but even in their culture, for the Indians, it was not something that was looked well upon. It was just like a complete waste, what was done here. But it is a pretty neat, you know, this tree-lined lane leading back to that memorial. I mean, look around here today. It's beautiful around here today. You know, it's kind of difficult to imagine something like that happening in a peaceful spot like this, but at different times. Yeah, back in the distance, you can kind of see the mountains in the distance. That was the frontier. The Indians had snuck over that frontier to make this attack. And I understand that this is a sensitive topic to talk about here, considering there's somewhat similar things going on today, if you know what I'm talking about, but it's still a piece of history, and history needs to be told. So even no matter how ugly it is, it's a lesson. I think one of the main lessons is just to make sure that we don't, I don't know how to say, descend back into times like that. I mean, like I said in other videos, like, we're so spoiled today. I think we don't live so much in fear like they had to back then. You know, just any moment someone, I mean things do happen these days, but to be honest, most of you out there don't live in fear of, you know, raiders coming to your house at night and massacring your family and scalping you. You know, like I said, things happen, but this kind of stuff was commonplace back then. They had to live daily in fear of stuff like that. But anyway, history isn't always pretty, folks, but it's still important to learn it and to remember it. But regardless, thanks for coming along with me on this little adventure and visiting this little memorial and listening to the story that I have to tell, or the story that history has to tell. But I think that'll be it for today, folks. We've kind of been out and about here in Franklin, Cumberland counties today, but I think it's time to head home. All right, folks, just remember, you have it pretty good. You know, life could be, no matter how bad it is, life could be worse for you sometimes, but just keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to head home. Thanks for watching, folks, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.